the gospel at the ends of the world. This mission flies planes and supports pastors in some of the remotest areas in the entire world, in a place where the weather and Satan is trying to stop the gospel. Arctic Barnabas is helping support the work of its going out. Stay tuned on Today by the Bible. This is Pastor Matthew. I'm with Robert Bearden, and he is the director of Arctic Barnabas Ministries. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We'll share a little bit about, so this mission, as I mentioned, we are in Alaska. Normally I'm on my little island in Alaska, but we're actually in Glacier View, and we're doing a tour. We're on the road in October and November, so you'll be seeing this sometimes after that. But share a little bit about Arctic Barnabas, just a real quick overview, and we're going to get into the details.
Yeah, sure thing. So Arctic Barnabas Ministries, we're a pastoral care and a missionary care organization. And our heart is to strengthen and encourage pastors and missionaries in remote Alaska so that they can more effectively advance the gospel of Jesus Christ. What we've found over the years is that pastors out in those remote locations without support systems, they don't last a long time. And what we need longevity so that people have the opportunity to have more gospel conversations in the villages where they serve.
So let's break that down a little bit. So first of all, you've been here about 3 years?
That's right.
How did you end up coming to Alaska, since that's not where you're from?
Right. Yeah. So originally I came to Alaska in the late 90s with the United States Air Force. And I was first assigned up here. I fell in love with the state. And then I met and fell in love with the lady who would become my wife. And we have been feeling drawn back to Alaska for years. And eventually, after retiring from the military, the Lord called us back here, but this time in ministry.
And so after you retired, you came out from doing a career in the Air Force. Before we move on, I do real quick want to ask you, if somebody's getting ready to retire or I was a veteran, but getting out of the military, what's maybe 2 pieces of advice, especially if they're a Christian, as far as seeking God's will? I know we're going to primarily talk about Arctic Barnabas, but some of the people watching, if they're veterans, God is most likely calling you to do missions. So maybe give them a word of encouragement or perspective.
Yeah, I think my encouragement would be pray for the Lord's will. And, one of the things that I found is I found a lot of meaning in my military service. And so as I prayed, I said, Lord, I'd like to have meaningful work. And he provided that, right? That was a good thing to pray, and he provided meaningful work. So I think you can pray for meaningful work. The other encouragement I would give veterans or retirees is just be very open to what the Lord may have for you. You just never know. I tell folks, I never thought I'd be in full-time ministry. I never thought I would be the director of a ministry. And so just be very open to what the Lord may have for you. He may just surprise you with what he asks you to do, but it'll be worth it.
And I think if I remember correctly, you all kind of envision a position, not full-time ministry, not directing, but you would be maybe working, supporting the work of missions.
Right. Yeah. So years ago, the Lord put it on our hearts to care for pastors. And really what we were looking to do coming out of the military, I had planned to get a second job and a second high-paying job. We wanted to buy some land and build some cabins and create a place where pastors and missionaries could just rest and refresh and kind of do a hospitality ministry. And at the end of the day, the way that all worked out was the Lord wanted our heart more than he wanted us to do that. And when we surrendered to what he would have for us, we ended up doing a similar ministry, caring for pastors and missionaries, but not in the way we had envisioned.
And so the main point is wherever you're at, just keep your hand open and just say yes to the Lord, and he will. What I think is interesting, it's not being qualified, but yet he will use your gifts and talents in wherever he calls you. It'll just most of the time not be as you envisioned it.
Right. Yeah. And in fact, in our own story, years and years ago, we had a pastor, actually the pastor of our sending church, preached a message about putting your yes on the altar. And that day, Lisa and I did that. We said, Lord, the answer is yes. You asked the question. And as we were getting ready to retire from the Air Force, we had this dream of coming back here and building these cabins and all this stuff. And we had all of our plans. And one evening we said, what would it look like to come back to that yes? And to come back to the yes on the altar and say, Lord, what do you want it to be? And it was the next morning, as I was on a business trip, that the Lord pointed us to Arctic Barnabas Ministries, and here we are.
And here you are. So tell us a little bit about Arctic Barnabas as a pastor in a remote area in Alaska. They help us, but it's an amazing ministry. Oh, first we should back up. When we say remote pastors, if you're not living in Alaska, maybe a little bit of Canada, you cannot quite grasp what that means. And there's challenges everywhere, but what does it mean when we say pastors in remote areas?
Right. Yeah. So Alaska has 240 remote communities. And when we say remote, what we mean by that is places accessible only by airplane or seasonally, maybe by boat or snow machine. And so there are these 240 communities in the state that pretty much you can only get into them by airplane. So I make a distinction between those remote locations versus a rural location on the road system that looks a lot like other places in rural America. The really interesting thing is that the best data we have says that of those 240 remote locations, only about 15% of those have a planted gospel church. And so we think a prerequisite to seeing that change, to seeing more planted gospel churches in those 240 remote communities, at a minimum, we have to keep the pastors and missionaries who are there on the field. And so that's really the heartbeat of Arctic Barnabas Ministries, is to strengthen and encourage those folks and keep them on the field so that we can see more opportunities for gospel conversations and, Lord willing, more planted gospel churches to share the good news of Jesus.
So in other words, they have to be reached by a plane or boat. And sometimes there might be a village here and it's connected to another one, but a lot of times that's just not the case. Like taking our place, we're on an island. We have the extreme weather in the sense of rain, not snow. It takes a boat or a plane and a helicopter to get to us. And there's so many more. And what is the practicalness like when we say you're trying to live in those places? It means what? Like what's different from, say, if I live in Anchorage or I live in New York or I live in someplace in the lower 48? If I live in this remote area, what does that mean in December, January?
Right. Yeah, I think the first thing that means is all of your groceries and supplies have to be flown in or brought in on a barge earlier in the season, right? So these folks can't just go down to the store, although most of our remote communities do have a small store and they can get supplies, but it's very expensive, right? So most things are flown in, or everything is flown in or boated in, and it's going to cost more. The other thing is that it's very much about staying alive. It's survival, right? And that sounds, I don't want that to sound too extreme, but folks are having to haul water, haul wood, keep fires lit, right? To keep the house warm, to keep the church warm. These things all take work. And so it's a lot of work for the folks that we serve just to be on the field. They have to work day in and day out.
And then another thing I thought compounded on that, let's say I have a house and a church, and let's say I'm in Missouri somewhere where I'm from. The heater goes out. What are you doing? You're calling so-and-so. Hey, can you come? Well, I can't get there this week. I'll get there next year. Like, that's great. Okay, you come. It's not going to be cheap. But the reality here in these remote villages, let's say the boiler breaks or you have something else happen. What does that look like?
Right. Yeah, that could be a very significant concern in a remote location. And so oftentimes these folks have to be really self-sufficient in that and make their own repairs and that kind of thing. We want to be someone they can call. Those kinds of repairs aren't really in our...
So some really quick, they can't just call and they're going to come. Because imagine how much you already pay for somebody if you can get a cheap one, but you're adding, they're going to come out here and fly and they might get stuck for a few days. You're just not going to be able to get anybody to do it. So then so we have the pastor there. It's a remote village. It's very spiritually heavy. So enter in Arctic Barnabas. And what do they do as far as serving the pastors?
Yeah. So, well, like I've mentioned, we want to strengthen and encourage them. And oftentimes that is just being with them. Our theme verse comes from Romans 1:11 and 12, where Paul says, I long to be with you. I long to see you. And when Paul said, I long to see you, there was no Zoom, all right? When he said, I long to see you, it was to be with you. I long to see you that I may impart some spiritual gift to you to make you strong. And then he goes on to say, that is that our faith may be mutually encouraged, both yours and mine. And that's what we find is we want to be with them. And oftentimes, these folks just need someone to hear them and to listen. And so we want to be with them, find out how they're doing. We love when we come out on a trip. We love to bring fresh fruits and vegetables, the things that are a blessing to them that otherwise wouldn't be available to them. And we also will bring work teams. So if a pastor or a missionary in a remote location needs some work done, we love to connect them with a church that wants to love on them and help them with physical needs or with a construction project, that kind of thing. And then we like to create opportunities for them to get refreshment. And we have a couple that will come and watch their kids in the village so that they, the pastor and wife, can get out on a vacation or come to our retreat location in Homer and just get some refreshment. So any of those kinds of things that just encourages them, strengthens them in the work that they're doing so they can stay on the field and be effective.
Because most people who come, they sense a call to God, they move here. From my understanding, they don't last even longer than 2 years, do they?
Yeah, it's, one pastor who's been here a long time, he would say that in some places they don't even want to know your name until you've been there 3 years because so many before you have just come and gone. And so they're looking, the local people are looking to see, are you going to stay? And do you have something worthwhile to share with me, right?
Oh, that's so true. So you see some of the unique challenges pastors have in Arctic Barnabas. So some of the neat things in the call of the ministry, just neat. You all have a couple of airplanes because you fly out to these communities. And what have you learned about overseeing a ministry that has a unique challenge, expense, everything of having airplanes?
Right. Yeah, so we have 3 airplanes. For us, the airplane is just a tool. It is just a tool to get us out to do our ministry because, again, we're a relational ministry. We want to be with these pastors and missionaries. One of the things that I think we all recognize about aviation is it's expensive. It requires a lot of resources to keep airplanes well maintained, to keep them operating safely. Fortunately, there are others in the state that do an amazing job of that. The Missionary Aviation Repair Center in Soldotna, they're a great resource in that regard. And there are a lot of people in the state that do a lot more flying than we do. And so we're able to lean on them for advice and, sometimes even outsourcing maintenance on our aircraft. But we are very, very blessed. We have 3 aircraft. We have a hangar and vehicles that we use. And by the goodness of God, all of that, 100% of that is owned and debt-free, which allows us to operate. When you're operating in a space where it is so expensive to travel and, you may pay $7,000 to fill the avgas tank, right?
Wow.
And when you write those kind of checks, you don't want any burden of debt behind you. So it is a very expensive thing to do. But the Lord has been really good to us and has provided and made it where we can travel and serve these folks.
And another thing they do is they have right now, we're attending the ministry family retreat where once a year, and they have a men and women's conference, all of these pastors from around Alaska come for a week and they serve and we get loved on. It's just such a blessing. What's a couple ways people could find out more? What's the link to the website? And then talk about some of the ways. Some of you maybe have skills and you never even thought about maybe God's calling you to Alaska and you could connect with Arctic Barnabas, because it's not just them serving pastors. They want to facilitate more church plants. But how can someone connect with you, and then how can someone get involved?
Yeah, great. So our website is arcticbarnabas.org. So arcticbarnabas.org. And you can just also Google us, throw in Arctic Barnabas in your Google search, and you'll find us. And there's lots of ways to connect with us. The website has some great information and some links where you can reach out to us. Or if you feel led to support the ministry financially, there's links for that. And then I think, like you said, Matthew, that everybody has some skills that the Lord's given them. They have some skills, some talents, some abilities. And if you feel like, hey, would this fit, or could I be helpful in this way? I'd say just reach out to us and ask. Click that info email button on our website. Those will come to me, and I'll get a chance to hear from you. And if it's something that you think maybe the Lord's calling you, and you wonder, hey, could this skill set be useful? Let's have that conversation and see, I'm convinced the Lord just needs willing people. He'll take care of the rest on filling in the blanks.
And there's such a demand and need for everyone here, and I think it's so needed, and there's so much opportunity, and it's very much frontier mission. They say Alaska's the last frontier. Well, you talk about the ends of the earth, it's here in Alaska. What's a couple other things, maybe one last story when you got to Alaska, and where's your headquarters located at?
Yeah, so our headquarters is located in Kenai, Alaska. So we're about a 20-minute flight south of Anchorage, or about a 2.5-hour drive south of Anchorage.
So before we finish off, what's a neat story that you personally experienced since you've come here? It can be scary, it can be funny, it can be just like, wow. It doesn't have to be where you're flying out to the village. It can just be any kind of interesting story.
Yeah, so I don't know, several things come to mind as you asked that, Matthew, but one of the things that I learned in being in ministry, and especially after 25 years in the military, is you never know one day to the next what ministry is going to look like. One day for us, ministry could look like plowing snow at our headquarters there in Kenai to keep the parking area and the apron where we park our airplanes, keep that all clear. So one day could be that. Another day could be getting a dog onto an airplane to get out to a ministry family who's just purchased this new puppy. Another day could be sitting with a pastor and just hearing their story and sharing burdens with them. And so, what I've come to realize is you just don't know from one day to the next, being in ministry, what it's going to look like. And the good thing about that is, I think what the Lord wants us to do is to not be one step ahead of him, to not lag one step behind him, but to just be right with him along day to day. And that's a challenge, I think, for all of us. But it's a fun way to live.
So give the website one more time.
Yeah, so the website is www.arcticbarnabas.org.
And I'll put that in the video. We've been talking to Robert Bearden. He is the director of Arctic Barnabas Ministry, a powerful ministry that supports and reaches out in the great state of Alaska, some of the most remote areas in the world. If you're going to be a Christian who's following the Lord, you have got to be on mission. Maybe you're called to Africa, but you need to make sure you're following the call if you're going to really live by the Bible. Have a good day. Bye.